Hi, welcome to the last part of our lesson, Theoretical Perspectives, Past and Present. Again, these are theories about second language acquisition. Now that we are done with these four approaches, we are moving to four hypotheses which are related to the information processing approach. And these four hypotheses are kind of recent. We will see in the upcoming slides that they are in the past 20 to 30 years. And these four hypotheses are kind of related to each other because they are all related to the information processing approach. Let's begin with the interaction hypothesis. It was suggested by Michael Long in 1980s, 1990s. It's focused on modified interaction and its role in second language development. Concepts related to this hypothesis are corrective feedback, negative feedback, and negotiation for meaning. What do we mean by all of these terms? First of all, you must know that the interaction hypothesis emphasizes the important role of conversational interaction among the learner and any conversational partner that might be a native speaker or a native-like speaker. In such cases, the other partner might be a local person in the country where that language is spoken, or the teacher who instructs the second or the foreign language. This view suggests that modifications, what do we mean by modifications, are any changes or adjustments to the speech that a conversational partner does while talking. These changes actually facilitate comprehension, making it easier for the learner to understand meaning and what is being said. Interactional modifications make input comprehensible, therefore enabling language acquisition. Language acquisition is already happening. However, modifications to the conversations, so we can call them conversational interaction, interactional modifications, conversational modifications, or interactional adjustments. They all mean the same thing. The whole idea is that during a conversation there are changes happening, and we will see in the next slide how. All of these actually help facilitate, make comprehension easier and language acquisition easier for the learner. So Long focused on conversations between native and non-native speakers. In 1983, he pointed out native speakers modify not only their speech, the words they use when they talk to non-native speakers, but also certain features related to interaction. How does this happen? Through linguistic simplifications, that is simplifying the structure of the words used, and certain modifications in the conversation. Examples. Elaboration, as in using more examples to make the idea clearer. Slow, speaking slowly. Gestures with the hands and maybe facial expressions, they help the learner understand more what is being said. Contextual cues, these are kinds of clues within the sentence that the learner could connect the dots and understand what is happening. Comprehension checks, that is asking questions like, do you understand? Did you get me? Is this clear? These are things that usually teachers use with their students, and maybe in conversations they could happen. Request for clarification. This is similar to number 5, but it's different. It's the other. Here it's like, could you repeat please? Okay. Or for example, I did not understand. Could you say this again? We would say something like, I beg your pardon. These could be said by the learner to the teacher, or the teacher with the learner. And this happens a lot when someone is in a naturalistic context. For example, traveling to another country, and a person might speak the language of that country but not really fluently, and they might ask locals, native speakers of that language, to repeat what they said, or to paraphrase, or to say it again, etc. Recast, please focus on this term, which will pass in the next chapter. And it is one of the important actions that happen during conversational modifications. It is when we rephrase an incorrect utterance correctly. For example, a student might tell the teacher, let me use an example from before. I go to the cinema yesterday, and then the teacher would reply, oh, nice, you went to the cinema yesterday. Here, there's a recast, repeating the same phrase correctly. And the mistake here, or the error, was saying goed, and the teacher said went instead of goed. So it's a type of indirectly correcting someone else. Self-repetition, that is repeating, just repeating the same sentence. Paraphrasing, repeating the same utterance in a different way, using synonyms, for example, etc. I hope these are clear. And from your experiences as teachers or as learners, you know that this happens a lot when you are conversing with a native speaker, or when you are talking to your teacher or your classmate. Okay, now we come to the concepts of corrective feedback and negotiation for meaning. What do you mean by these? Long focused on modified interaction actually helps in acquisition through corrective feedback during interaction. How does corrective feedback happen during interaction? He mentioned the phrase negotiation for meaning, which is a process that happens during conversation where the learners and the competent speaker, whether it's native or native-like, interact in various ways, making adjustments in their speech, as we mentioned before, until understanding is achieved. So, by using any of these actions, whether repetition, paraphrasing, clarification request, etc., what the process that is happening here is negotiation for meaning. Negotiate is to find a middle ground between two groups or two parties. And this is what's happening when we have a learner of a language and another native or native-like speaker, that is competent person, talking to them. They are giving and talking. They are exchanging meaning. And by doing adjustments to the words or sentences they say, they are actually negotiating for meaning, trying to find something that is understandable among both. Therefore, they provide and interpret signals, okay, of their own and their partners. So it becomes something that is mutual, happening on both sides. Finally, these adjustments include changes to linguistic form, as we said before, conversational structure, and the message content might be changed. So here we're repeating the idea again. And this is corrective feedback because you are not directly telling the learner that they're doing an error. Now we move to the negative feedback, which according to Long is also helpful. Why? Because negative feedback draws attention. And remember, in processing, we talked before about attention. In processing, in the information processing hypotheses, we focused on attention, memory, and processing. And we said that paying attention is important for the learner to take the input and keep it in the short memory. After being practiced, it reaches the long-term memory and language is acquired. So when you give negative feedback, sometimes it draws attentions of the learners to the utterances that they say incorrectly. Hence, negative feedback is helpful in SLA. How? This is important for you as future teachers. Negative feedback that learners receive draws attention, as we said before, to linguistic aspects related to grammar, that is, phonology, etc. Yet, and these aspects are not yet fully acquired by the learner. So it's a continuous process. Learners hence benefit when they notice the gap. This is what they call. And why is it called the gap? Because it is the gap between the way they express their thoughts, how they speak, and how the native speaker does so. So they compare and they notice the gap, what they need to fill in, what they need to learn. Some research has revealed that conversational adjustment do actually help. So this is recent, 1987, in L2 comprehension and later production, that is output. One study found that what learners tend to notice more is actually feedback related to lexical and phonological aspects of language, related to words and spelling or pronunciation. All right, now we will be moving to the comprehensible output hypothesis, and as it says, related to output, that is whatever we produce. It's a short hypothesis, not that difficult, developed by Merle Swain in the 1980s. Swain focused on target language production or learners' output. Swain focused on forcing learners to produce the second language, that is usually to talk or to write, actually makes them attend to the language. Remember, attend means paying attention. And this eventually leads to improving language proficiency and language development. According to her, having to communicate, being forced to communicate in the target language helps in improving language, because producing the target language may be the trigger that forces the learner to pay attention to the means of expression. They will notice what they need to say and how to structure their words in order to convey, that is, to produce or show the meaning they intend. According to Swain, what was missing, she studied certain immersion classrooms, and she noticed that what was missing is opportunities, chances for students to engage in comprehensible output, to produce the language. They got comprehensible input, but alone comprehensible input is not enough. We actually need output to reach L2 proficiency. And from your experiences in immersion classrooms here in Lebanon, or maybe outside, with English language or French, if you are French educated, is that you had a lot of input. However, you got little chances to produce the language orally, that is comprehensible output. So if you were forced to produce the second language, you would have been more proficient. So there are a lot of benefits for output. You definitely know it enhances fluency and automaticity. It helps the learner analyze grammatical aspects. It serves to draw attention to gaps. And this challenge of having to produce words actually gives the chance for improvement. And finally, it elicits relevant input. That is, when someone is engaged in communication with another person and they have to carry a conversation and to talk, their partner in the conversation, especially if they are a native speaker, provide them with input. So it's an ongoing process of input and output. You know, I'm listening, I'm receiving, and at the same time I'm talking, I'm producing. It's a type of exchange. All right, this is it for the first two hypotheses. We will finish the chapter in the next video.